The space station floated in the darkness between stars. It was made of crystal and metal, and it shined like a diamond against the black sky. The station was called Eternal Accord, and it was the most important place in the galaxy. Here, the 12 most powerful species met to decide the fate of all others. Today, the Great Hall was full. 12 ambassadors sat in a circle, each one looking different from the others. Some had scales, some had feathers, some had too many eyes or too many arms. They had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. They called themselves the Conclave of 12. Ambassador Cathorn stood in the center of the circle. He was tall and thin, with hard skin like a beetle and sharp parts on his face that clicked when he talked. His species was called the Sithid, and they were one of the oldest in the galaxy. "My friends," Keth said, his voice cold and sharp, "we have a problem, a dangerous problem, and we must deal with it now before it is too late." He touched a button and a blue light appeared in the air. It showed a small planet, blue and green, floating in space. The planet was called Earth. Humans, Keith Voren said the word like it tasted bad. "They come from this world, a death world. Class 12 on our danger scale." The other ambassadors shifted in their seats. Death World was a planet that tried to kill everything on it. Most species came from peaceful worlds with gentle weather. Earth was not gentle. They have only been in space for 200 years. Kevorin continued, but already they have spread to 40 star systems. They breed vast. They build fast. They take what they want. Another ambassador spoke up. This one looked like a bird made of silver metal. "They are young. They do not know our laws. Perhaps we should teach them." Cathorn's face parts clicked hard. "We have tried. They do not listen. They have broken 17 of our treaties. They have taken worlds that belong to us, and worse." He paused to make sure everyone was listening. "They have been helping the lesser species." A gasp went through the room. The lesser species were the weak ones, the ones who served the Conclave. They were not allowed to have weapons or ships of their own, but humans had been giving them technology, teaching them things. They call it uplifting, Keith said with disgust. "They think they are helping. They do not understand that the galaxy has an order, a natural way of things. The strong rule, the weak serve. That is how it has always been." The bird ambassador spoke again. "What do you want us to do?" Keith Vorn smiled. It was not a nice smile. "Directive 7 Omega. We declare humans a danger species. We stop their spread. We contain them, and if they fight back," he clicked his face parts again, "we destroy them." The vote took only a few minutes. All 12 ambassadors raised their hands. The decision was made. Kever pressed another button, and the message went out across the galaxy. Every radio, every screen, every communication device carried the same words. Humanity was now the enemy of the Conclave of 12. Far away on a planet called Mars, Admiral Yuki Tanaka was eating lunch when the message arrived. She was a small woman with gray hair and calm eyes. She had been a soldier for 40 years. She had fought in 3 wars between human nations before the world united. She had seen death many times and was not afraid of it. Her assistant ran into the room, breathing hard. "Admiral, you need to see this." Tanaka read the message on her screen. She read it again. Then she put down her food and started to laugh. It was not a happy laugh. It was the laugh of someone who had just heard a Very bad joke, Admiral, her assistant. Looked worried. What should we do? Tanaka stopped laughing. Her face became serious. Get me the War Council. All of them tonight, but Admiral, the Council members are spread across 6 planets. It will take days to tonight, Tanaka repeated. Her voice was quiet but hard. Like steel. Tell them we have been declared war upon. Tell them they Conclave thinks they can scare us into giving up. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the red desert of Mars. Tell them they have made a terrible mistake. Her assistant nodded and ran out of the room. Tanaka stayed at the window for a long time. She thought about her grandmother who had survived a great war on Earth. She thought about her father who had worked in the mines of Luna to feed his family. She thought about every hard thing humans had ever done to survive. Conclave thought humans were animals, vermin, a problem to be solved. They had no idea. Back on Eternal Accord, Ambassador Kevorin was celebrating with the other ambassadors. They drank expensive drinks and talked about how easy the war would be. Humans are young, said the bird ambassador. They have never fought a real war in space. They are divided, said another ambassador, this one covered in purple scales. They fight among themselves. They will not stand together. Keith nodded. And they are soft. They care too much about their weak. They waste resources on the old and the sick. Species like that cannot win against us. They all agreed the war would be over in months, maybe weeks. Humans would learn their place and the galaxy would return to normal. None of them noticed the small cleaning robot in the corner of the room. None of them knew that this robot had been bought by human traders 5 years ago. None of them knew it was recording everything they said on Mars. Admiral Tanaka watched the recording and smiled. They think we are weak because we care for each other, she said to her empty room. They think we are soft because we help the ones who cannot help themselves. She turned off the screen. They have no idea that this is why we are strong. She walked to her desk and began to write orders. Ships needed to move. Factories needed to change what they made. Scientists needed to start new projects. The Conclave had given humanity a gift, even if they did not know it. For the first time in history, every human on every planet in every country had the same enemy, the same cause, the same reason to fight. Together, Tanaka rode through the night. Outside her window, Mars turned slowly under the stars and across human space. The sleeping giant began to wake. High tacticians stood on the bridge of his warship and looked at the planet below. It was a cold world covered in snow and ice. The humans called it New Helsinki. It was a farming colony, nothing more. Taking it would be easy, but Tessa was a tall creature with 4 arms and skin the color of sand. His species, the Vashani, were known as the best soldiers in the Conclave. They had won a 100 wars. They had never lost. How many humans lived down there? He asked. Approximately 200,000, his officer replied. Mostly farmers and their families. Their defense forces are small. Saul nodded. Begin the attack. This will be over by sunset. 800 warships moved toward the planet. They fired their weapons at the defense stations in orbit. The stations exploded one by one. Human ships tried to fight back, but there were too few of them. In 3 hours, the sky belonged to the Conclave. Send down the ground troops. Ordered, take the main cities. Capture Their leaders, we will make them surrender. 50,000 Vashani soldiers landed on the frozen surface of New Helsinki. They marched toward the capital city in perfect lines, their weapons ready. They expected the humans to come out with their hands up. Humans did not come out. Instead, the ground exploded. Hidden bombs threw Vashani soldiers into the air. Gunfire came from every building, every window, every hole in the ground. The perfect lines broke into chaos. Yaw watched from his ship, his forehands gripping the railing. What is happening? Down there, the humans are fighting back. High tactician, of course they are fighting back. Crush them, but crushing them was not easy. The Vashani soldiers had better weapons and better armor, but the humans knew the land. They knew where to hide. They knew how to move through the snow without being seen, and they would not stop fighting. Day 1 passed, then day 2, then day 3. The reports that came to Irisal were bad. Vashani soldiers were dying from the cold. Their bodies could not handle temperatures below freezing. They needed heated shelters and warm food, but the humans kept attacking the supply lines, blowing up the ships that brought supplies. How is this possible? Saul demanded. They are farmers. His science officer pulled up information on a screen. I tactician, I have been studying the human home world. Earth is difficult. How? The temperature changes wildly. Parts of the planet drop far below freezing for months at a time. Other parts become hot enough to kill, and the atmosphere contains oxygen at high levels. Oxygen. Irithal's skin turned pale. Oxygen was a poison, a corrosive gas that destroyed metal and burned flesh. Humans breathe it. High tactician, they needed to live. Their bodies have evolved to survive conditions that would kill any other known species. Iris looked back at the planet. Down there, human soldiers were walking through blizzards that his own troops could not survive for 10 minutes. Human children were carrying ammunition through waist-deep snow, their faces red from cold but very much alive. On day 7, Ithal received a report that made his blood turn cold. A group of Vashani soldiers had captured a small human town. They had taken prisoners, including women and children. They thought this would make the other humans surrender. Instead, a single human male had walked into the town that night. He was old with gray hair and a bad leg. He should not have been a threat to anyone. He killed 40 Vashani soldiers before they stopped him. He used a gun until the bullets were gone. Then he used a knife. Then he used his hands. When they finally shot him, he was smiling. The Vashani soldiers who survived that night were not the same afterward. They had seen something in that old man's eyes, something that did not belong in a civilized species, something hungry and patient and utterly without fear. By day 11, Irisal had lost 60% of his ground forces. The capital city was finally his, but it was empty. The humans had retreated into the wilderness, into tunnels, into places his soldiers could not follow, and they kept fighting. Small attacks every night, bombs on the roads, poison in the water supplies, snipers who could hit a target from 1,000 meters away and disappear before anyone could find them. Bring me a prisoner, Saul ordered. I want to understand these creatures. They brought him a young human female. She had been caught trying to destroy a fuel depot. Her hands were tied and her face was covered in dirt and blood, but she did not look afraid. Urith Saul studied her. Why do you keep fighting? You cannot win. Your planet has fallen. Your people are dying. Surrender and we will let you live. The human female laughed. It was the same kind of laugh Admiral Tanaka had made when she read the Conclave's message. You really don't understand, do you? The female said. You think this is bad? This is nothing. My grandmother survived something called the Winter War. Her people were outnumbered, outgunned, fighting in snow so deep you could lose a truck in it. They won. She leaned forward and Irisal found himself leaning back. Humans have been fighting things that want to kill us since we first stood up on two legs. Ice ages, plagues, predators, each other. We are very, very good at not dying, and we are even better at making our enemies die instead. Irisal sent the prisoner away. Then he sat alone in his room for a long time, thinking about what she had said. He pulled up more information about Earth. He read about the ice ages when humans had survived, temperatures that froze the oceans. He read about plagues that killed half their population and they kept going. He read about their wars, conflicts so brutal and terrible that they made conclave battles look like children's games do. And then he read about something called persistence hunting. Long ago, before humans had weapons, they hunted by following their prey. They did not run fast. They did not have sharp claws or big teeth, but they could walk. They could walk for hours, for days, following an animal until it was too tired to run anymore. Then they would kill it. They did not need to be faster or stronger. They just needed to not give up. Irisal closed the screen. He understood now. The Conclave had not started a war. They had started a hunt, and they were not the hunters. He wrote a report to the Conclave leadership that night. He told them everything he had learned. He begged them to stop the war before it was too late. They did not listen, and far away on Mars, Admiral Tanaka read the reports from New Helsinki. She felt sorrow for the humans who had died, but she also felt something else, pride they held. She said to her war council, farmers and shopkeepers and school teachers, they held against the best soldiers in the conclave. She stood up and looked at the faces around the table. Now imagine what we will do when we send our real soldiers. The conclave was pleased with the early results of the war. Yes, the battle for New Helsinki had been harder than expected. Yes, they had lost many soldiers, but they had won. The planet belonged to them now. An ambassador, Keith Voren, gave speeches about the great victory. He showed pictures of conclave flags flying over human cities. He promised that the war would be over soon. He was wrong. In the 3 months after New Helsinki fell, humans did something the conclave had never seen before. Every nation, every faction, every group that had ever fought with each other stopped fighting. They looked at the enemy above them and made a choice. They chose to become one. Admiral Tanaka stood before the United Terran Assembly in a bunker deep under the red surface of Mars. The room was full of people from every human world. Politicians, generals, scientists, and workers. Old enemies sat next to each other. People who had hated each other for generations now shared the same goal. 9 million, Tanaka said. Her voice was soft, but everyone heard it. That is how many of us died on New Helsinki. Farmers, teachers, children, people who never wanted to fight anyone. She let the numbers sit in the air. The conclave calls us vermin, animals, a disease to be cleaned away. They think we are weak. Because we fight among ourselves, they think we will break into pieces when they push us. She walked to the center of the room. They are right that we fight among ourselves. It is in our nature. We argue, we disagree, we compete, but there is something else in our nature, something older and stronger. Her eyes moved across the room. When something threatens the tribe, we stop fighting each other. When something threatens our children, we become the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy, not because we are the strongest or the fastest, but because we do not stop, we do not give up, we keep coming until our enemy is destroyed or we are. A man stood up. He was the leader of a group that had been at war with another human faction for 50 years. What do you want us to do, Admiral? Everything, Tanaka replied. I want everything, every ship, every factory, every scientist, every person who can hold a weapon or build a tool or grow food for soldiers. I want humanity to become a single fist aimed at the throat of our enemy. The room was silent for a moment. Then the man nodded. You have it. One by one, every person in the room agreed. There was no arguing, no politics, no asking for something in return. They simply agreed because they understood that this was not about power or territory or money. This was about survival. The transformation began immediately on Earth. Factories that had made cars and televisions and toys started making weapons and armor and ships. The change happened so fast that Conclave spies could not believe their reports. On Luna, the great mining station stopped digging for minerals to sell. They started digging for materials to build warships. Workers who had worked 8 hours a day and now worked 16. Nobody complained. On Mars, scientists who had studied stars and planets and the nature of the universe turned their minds to destruction. Within weeks, they had improved human weapons by 40%. Within months, they had created new ones that the Conclave had never seen. But the most important change was not in the factories or the laboratories. It was in the people. A teacher on Colony 7 put down her books and picked up a rifle. She trained for 12 hours a day until she could hit a target at 500 m. A doctor on Earth learned how to treat wounds that no medical school had ever taught. Plasma burns, radiation sickness, the strange injuries that came from fighting alien species. 12-year-old boy on New Venus memorized every weak point of Vanny armor. He shared this information with every human he could contact, spreading it across the network until every soldier knew where to shoot. Even the old and the sick found ways to help. A grandmother who could not walk made bandages. Dying man spent his last weeks teaching young people how to fly ships. Everyone did something. The Conclave noticed the change, but they did not understand it. Human production has increased by 300%. A Conclave analyst reported to Ambassador Cathan, their military forces are growing faster than we can destroy them. Keith Vaughn waved his hand. Numbers mean nothing. They are still young, still primitive. Our technology is better. With respect, Ambassador. Their technology is improving. They have captured our weapons and learned how to copy them. In some cases, they have made them better. K. Warren's face parts clicked with annoyance. Then we will send more ships, more soldiers. We will crush them with weight of numbers. This was the Conclave's answer to every problem. More force. It had always worked before, but it would not work against humans. In a secret room on Mars, Admiral Tanaka met with her top generals. Maps covered the walls, showing Conclave territory, supply lines and fleet movements. We cannot beat them in a straight fight, Tanaka said. Not yet. They have too many ships, too many soldiers, too many resources. General frowned. Then what do we do? Tanaka smiled. It was a hunter's smile. We don't fight straight, we fight the way our ancestors fought, the way humans have always fought when we are outnumbered. She pointed at the map. We hit them where they are weak, we destroy their supplies, we cut their communication lines, we make them chase us across the galaxy while we bleed them. One cut at a time. That could take years, another general said. Yes. Tanaka agreed. It will take years, maybe decades, but we will win because we can do something they cannot. We can suffer, we can wait, we can keep going when any other species would give up. She looked at her generals. Our ancestors walked across frozen lands with no food and no shelter. They survived plagues that killed most of the people they knew. They rebuilt after wars that burned half the world. Compared to that, this is easy. The generals nodded. They understood that. And so began the real war, not the war of big battles and heroic victories. The war of patience and pain and slow grinding pressure, the war that humans had been fighting since the first human picked up a rock and decided to keep walking until the thing he was hunting finally fell down across the galaxy. Human ships appeared from nowhere, struck fast and disappeared before the Conclave could respond. Human spies spread through Conclave space, gathering information and planting seeds of doubt. Human soldiers landed on worlds the Conclave thought were safe and reminded them that nowhere was safe anymore. The giant was awake and it was hungry. 2 years into the war, the Conclave controlled more space than ever before. Their flags flew over a dozen human worlds. Their fleets were still the largest in the galaxy. On paper they were winning, but high tacticians knew the truth, and the truth kept him awake at night. He stood in his command center looking at a map of the galaxy. Red dots showed Conclave territory. Blue dots showed human space. The red had grown much larger than the blue, but that was not what worried him. Show me supply line status, he ordered. The map changed. Lines appeared connecting Conclave worlds to each other. Most of them were broken. Red warning symbols flashed everywhere. Attacks this month, he asked. 427. His officer replied. Supply ships destroyed 116. Military vessels damaged 53. Communication stations destroyed 12. Irith Saul closed his eyes. The numbers were getting worse every month. Humans did not fight like other species. They did not line up their fleets for big battles. They did not try to hold territory. They appeared from nowhere, hit something important, and vanished before anyone could catch them, and they were everywhere. Last week, a human team had destroyed a fuel station deep in Conclave space. The station was supposed to be impossible to reach without being detected. The humans had reached it anyway. They had killed everyone inside, taken what they could use, and blown up the rest. The week before that, a Conclave admiral had been killed on his own ship. A human assassin had somehow gotten on board, done the job, and escaped in an emergency pod. They still did not know how. We are bleeding all, said quietly. His officer said nothing. There was nothing to say. The conclave. Economy was falling apart, building. Warships cost money, replacing destroyed. Supplies cost money, protecting. Everything that needed protecting cost money, and the money was running out. Worse, the people were getting angry. On Silithid Prime, workers had refused to keep building weapons until their families got more food. On the Vashani home world, soldiers had attacked their own officers after being ordered into another hopeless battle, and the lesser species were starting to cause trouble. The conclave had ruled over hundreds of weaker species for thousands of years. These species had no weapons, no ships, no way to fight back. They did what they were told because they had no choice. But humans had given them a choice. Human agents had spread through conclave space like water through cracks in a wall. They found the unhappy species, the ones who hated their masters, the ones who wanted freedom. They taught them things: how to make simple bombs, how to hide weapons, how to fight without being caught, how to wait for the right moment. On 17 different worlds, the lesser species rose up at the same time. They destroyed factories. They killed conclave officials. They blocked roads and cut power lines. Each uprising was small, but together they caused chaos. The conclave had to send soldiers to stop the uprisings. Soldiers who were supposed to be fighting humans thought YAs understood what was happening. The humans were not trying to beat the conclave in battle. They were trying to make the conclave destroy itself. It was working. He wrote another report to the conclave leadership. He used simple words so even the politicians could understand. We are losing this war, not because humans are stronger than us, not because they have better weapons. We are losing because they understand something we do not. War is not about winning battles. War is about breaking your enemy's will to fight, and they are breaking ours. He sent the report. He did not expect anyone to listen. On Mars, Admiral Tanaka read intelligence reports with satisfaction. Everything was going according to plan. Conclave food production is down 30%. One of her officers reported their currency has lost half its value. Civil unrest on 14 core worlds. Tanaka nodded. And their military spread thin. They have to protect too many places. Every time they concentrate their forces somewhere, we hit somewhere else. Young officer spoke up. Admiral, some people are saying we should attack now. Push them while they are weak. Tanaka shook her head. Not yet. They are wounded, but they can still bite. We keep the pressure on. We keep them bleeding. We wait until they cannot fight anymore. Then we finish it. How long? The young officer asked. As long as it takes. Tanaka looked at him with calm eyes. Our ancestors followed animals for days until those animals were too tired to run. We will follow the conclave for years until they are too tired to fight. That is what humans do. That is why we win. The war continued. Human ships kept appearing and disappearing. Conclave supplies kept getting destroyed. Lesser species kept rising up, and slowly, piece by piece, the conclave fell apart. High Tactician Ithsal fought as hard as he could. He was a good soldier, maybe the best the conclave had. He won battles. He caught human raiders. He stopped some of the uprisings, but it was not enough. It was never enough. For every human ship he destroyed, 2 more appeared. For every uprising he crushed, 3 more started. For every Supply line he protected, another was cut one night alone in his quarters. Saul looked at a picture of Earth, the small blue planet that had produced these impossible creatures. What are you? He whispered. He had studied humans for 2 years now. He had learned their history, their biology, their way of thinking, but he still did not understand them. How could a species be so divided and so united at the same time? How could they fight among themselves for centuries and then become a single force in months? How could they lose world after world and still keep fighting as if they were winning? He remembered something a human prisoner had told him once. The man had been dying, shot during a battle, but he was smiling. You don't get it, the man had said. You think this hurts us, you think we're suffering, but this is what we are. This is what we were made for. We evolved fighting everything, ice, fire, disease, each other. You're just the latest thing trying to kill us, and you'll fail like everything else. The man had died with that smile on his face. Saul closed his eyes. He was tired, so tired. In 3 years of war, the conclave had not broken human will, but human will had broken something in the conclave. And Saul knew with terrible certainty that the end was coming. 3 years and 4 months after the war began, Ambassador Kever was eating breakfast when his bodyguard shot him. The bodyguard was a member of a species called the Tanny. The Tanny had served the Silithid for 800 years. They had no choice. The conclave had taken their home world long ago and made them into servants, but 6 months earlier a human woman had visited the bodyguard's family. She had given them weapons. She had given them hope. She had told them that the conclave was dying and that soon the Tanny could be free. Bodyguard fired 3 times. Katvarn died before he hit the floor. Across the galaxy, similar events were happening. Conclave leaders died in their beds, in their offices and places they thought were safe. The lesser species that had served them for centuries were rising up everywhere. And then the human fleet arrived. High Tactician Saul was on the conclave capital world when the alarm started screaming. He ran to the command center and looked at the screens. His heart stopped. The sky was full of ships, human ships, thousands of them, thousands of them, more ships than he had ever seen in one place. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was the other ships mixed in with them. Ships from the Tanny, ships from the Vine, ships from a dozen species. Conclave had conquered long ago. How? He whispered. How do they have so many? An officer answered, his voice shaking. They built them in secret. High Tactician, for 3 years they have been building all those hit-and-run attacks. All those distractions. They were keeping us busy while they prepared. This Saul felt something he had never felt before in his long military career. Despair. Admiral Tanaka's face appeared on every screen on the planet. She looked older than she had 3 years ago. There were more lines on her face, more gray in her hair, but her eyes were the same, calm, patient, deadly. People of the conclave, she said, 3 years ago you declared war on humanity. You called us vermin, animals, a disease to be cleaned from the galaxy. She paused. You were wrong. We'd come from a world that tried to kill us every day of our existence. Ice covered our lands, fires burned our forests, diseases killed our children. Predators hunted us in the dark, and we survived. We survived everything our planet could throw at us for 200,000 Years, our voice was steady, but there was iron beneath the words. You burned our worlds. You killed 9 million of our people you thought we would break. Instead, you taught us how to fight. Together, you united us in a way nothing else could. She leaned forward slightly. I am not here to destroy you. I am not here for revenge. I am here to give you a choice. The screen showed the human fleet moving into position, weapons powered up, targeting systems locked onto the capital city. Surrender unconditionally. Dissolve your conclave, free every species you have enslaved. Do these things and you will live. You will be allowed to keep your home worlds. You will be allowed to govern yourselves. You will become one voice among many. Instead of the master of all, Admiral Tanaka's eyes seemed to look directly at every person watching. Refuse, and we will do what humans have always done to those who threaten our children. We will remove you from existence. Not because we enjoy killing, not because we want revenge, but because we protect our own. And we do whatever is necessary to keep them safe. The transmission ended. Silence filled the command center. Sol turned to the other conclave leaders who had gathered there. Grand Masters, the High Council, the ones who had voted for Directive 7 Omega 3 years ago. Well, he asked, what do you want to do? One of them stepped forward. He was old even for his species. His scales had faded to gray and his movements were slow. We fight, the old one said. We have fought for 3,000 years. We do not surrender to animals. Thal looked at the screens at the thousands of ships waiting at the weapons pointed at their planet. Then he looked back at the old leader. You are a fool, said. Everyone stared at him. I have fought humans for 3 years, Aristotle continued. I have watched them lose world after world and keep fighting. I have watched them turn our own servants against us. I have watched them bleed us slowly until we have nothing left. He pointed at the screens. They do not bluff. They will destroy us if we refuse, and they will not feel bad about it. They will sleep well knowing they protected their people. The old leader raised his hand as if to argue. No. Irisal said, you have done enough. You started this war with your arrogance and your blindness. Now I will end it. He walked to the communication console and opened the channel to the human fleet. Admiral Tanaka, this is High Tacticians. Saul, I speak for the Conclave military. We surrender unconditionally. There was a moment of silence, then the Naka's voice came through, and the civilian governments looked at the old leader. They will surrender too, or I will make them. More silence. Then Tanaka spoke again. Very well, power down your weapons. Open your docks to our ships. Do not resist, and no one else needs to die today. Saul gave the orders. One by one the conclave weapons went silent. One by one the docks opened. When the first human soldiers stepped onto the capital world, Saul was there to meet them. He looked at them with tired eyes. You were right, he said to their commander. We should never have started this. We did not understand what we were facing. The human commander nodded. He was young, with dark skin and serious eyes. No, you didn't. 50 years later, the galaxy was a different place. The conclave was gone. In its place was something new, a true community of species where everyone had a voice. It was not perfect. There were arguments and disagreements and sometimes violence, but it was fair. It was free, and humans were everywhere. Not as conquerors, not as masters, as builders and teachers and protectors. The same stubbornness that had made them terrifying in war made them relentless. In peace, they helped rebuild worlds that had been destroyed. They helped species that had been oppressed learn to govern themselves. Admiral Tanaka lived long enough to see the first generation of children grow up in a free galaxy. She died at the age of 97, surrounded by family and friends. At her funeral, representatives from every species in the galaxy came to pay respects. Humans and Silithid and Vashani and Telani stood together and remembered the woman who had led humanity through its darkest time. Anil Vashani spoke at the service. It was ancient now. His sand-colored skin faded almost white. I hated her once, he said. I feared her. I wished for her death, but now I understand. She did not fight us because she enjoyed it. She fought us because she had to, because we gave her no choice. He looked at the crowd. Humans are not the strongest species, not the smartest, not the fastest, but they are something more important. They are survivors. They do not give up. They do not stop. And when they love something, they will burn the galaxy to protect it. He bowed his head. That is why they won. And that is why in the end they saved us from ourselves. The funeral ended. The crowd went home, and somewhere in a classroom on a distant world, a young student asked her teacher a question. Why are humans so special? The teachers smiled. Because they remember. They remember every ice age, every plague, every war, and they remember that no matter how bad things got, they survived. That knowledge lives in their blood, in their bones, in their souls, and it makes them dangerous beyond measure. She looked out the window at the stars. Never forget that. Never threaten what they love, and never ever assume that because they are small they are weak. The student nodded. And across the galaxy, the story of the human conclave war was told again and again, warning to anyone foolish enough to forget.